As aftershocks continue to hit the country, the Japanese government has deployed hundreds of planes and ships in a relief operation. It's also asked for help from foreign search and rescue teams.
A rescue operation is underway, of course. Japan's military has mobilized thousands of troops, 300 planes and 40 ships for the relief effort. More than 200,000 people are in emergency shelters, and countries around the world have offered their help and support for the people of Japan. So, as we were saying, a huge relief operation is underway in Japan following the earthquake and tsunami, in which we now know at least 1,000 people have lost their lives. That figure is likely to rise considerably. One report said 10,000 people were missing in the port town of Minamisanriku. Our correspondent in the worst-hit coastal city of Sendai says this devastation is astonishing. Giant shipping containers have been swept inland and they smashed against buildings. Fires are still burning close to the harbour. More than 200,000 people are in emergency shelters. Tens of thousands of Japanese troops and more than 100 ships and aircraft have been deployed on rescue and relief missions. Let's speak now to Michael Tong. He's a kindergarten teacher in Sendai, the worst affected area, and he was teaching when the earthquake hit. He joins us on the line. Michael, thanks for joining us. Can you just tell me what the situation is where you are right now?
Well, I'm downtown Sendai, so it's not too bad here. I had a look around today. Some buildings have been a bit damaged. I think some have been evacuated. But yeah, if people aren't back in their houses, they're in evacuation centres at the moment. But obviously the suburbs are a lot more affected than downtown.
And what happened when the earthquake hit? Can you just describe what you went through?
It's difficult to describe. I mean, I've been in Japan now 5 years and I'm used to quakes, but it's like nothing like that I've ever felt before. I was teaching, as I said, and when the quake happened, then me and the rest of my staff, we just grabbed the nearest kids and we just jumped on top of them to try to protect them against anything that could fall down. We couldn't move for about a minute or so. It was such a incredibly strong shaking. And just after a minute, I think the earthquake kind of slowed down a little bit, so we just grabbed the kids and just ran down the stairs and we got out.
These are kindergarten children, aren't they? How did they react? Because at that age, I would have thought, we know that school children in Japan are trained in earthquake evacuation. If they're very young, they wouldn't have really much of a clue what's going on.
No, I mean, none of us did, to be honest, but they were really good. I mean, a few of them were crying, of course, but, most of them were just shocked. So we just tried our best when we got to the park, and we tried our best to, basically keep them safe and calm and everything, which didn't help because almost every minute there was a huge aftershock. So,
what are you hearing now about the rescue and recovery efforts that are going on around the coastal areas close to Sendai, where you are? Can you give us a picture of what's occurring there?
Well, we had our power come on a few hours ago, so we've been watching Japanese TV. Some of the areas are still cut off. We get images of people at the top of the hospitals, writing out signs, waving flags to be rescued. The army has very quickly moved in, so they're helping with rescue efforts over there. And also there's a lot of aid organisations, Japanese ones, that are also helping out.
Michael Tong, I'm really grateful for you to spare the time in joining us. We wish you well. Thank you very much indeed.
Here now is Gillian Dacey, who is an operational member of Rapid UK. That is a charity which specialises in international search and rescue. You're a paramedic, Gillian. You've also been involved in the Pakistan earthquake of 2005 and also in Indonesia in 2010. Haiti as well, very recently. Is it possible to compare what's happened in Japan with any of those?
Well, the countries that each of these earthquakes have happened in quite recently are all quite different in terms of their economic makeup and the wealth, underlying wealth of the country. And I think that the hazards that are now facing Japan in terms of the nuclear industry and things like that are clearly not evident in countries such as Haiti or even New Zealand. So each earthquake, whilst it's different magnitude and has different results on the people, actually the underlying structure of the country, what's the infrastructure, is clearly really important as well in terms of the resulting hazards and dangers and ultimately survivability of people as well.
The Japanese government has only asked for a specific number of search and rescue teams. I understand you're on standby. What's the time frame here? How long can people survive under rubble?
If we're talking about rubble without the tsunami, so an earthquake that happens, such as New Zealand or Haiti, without the tsunami, then we're looking at anything up to sort of 4 days with certainty. And then beyond that, up to 7 days, things start to tailor off. And then we do hear reports of people surviving sort of 10 days and beyond. In situations like this, where we've got a lot of water, then clearly surviving in a flooded environment is obviously much more difficult. You need oxygen, you need air to survive.
Yes, indeed, because of course we have to draw a distinction between the earthquake search and rescue and the damage done and the lives lost to the tsunami. What's the big difference then with the water, apart from the fact that you have this mass of water which you just can't wade through?
Yes, and that is the problem. Is it's not like a normal flood, maybe, where you can get boats through it and you can move reasonably easy in a flood. This is just so full of debris that it's moving, you know, of its own accord. It makes it much more difficult to move around and much more hazardous. So your traditional search and rescue team, who's used to working in collapsed structures, is going to find it a lot more difficult to work in an environment where they're going to need boats or aren't able to move around.
I know you've been following events in Japan from the moment it happened. We're about, what are we, 19 hours ago that it happened. There have been reports of big fires. There's obviously a whole series of devastating factors around the earthquake. How difficult is the situation there right now?
I should imagine it's not an easy environment to work in. It's an ever-changing environment, and one that's it's very difficult to move around, so assessment of the area is going to be best done from air, so by helicopter is probably the best way of getting an overall picture of how much damage has been caused. And that's one of the key things that they're probably looking at now, is to start to get access to the various communities and to start to get an overall picture so they can decide where best to deploy local teams from within Japan, and also the teams that they've already deployed from internationally as well.
All right, Gillian Darcy, for the moment, thanks very much.
We have some details of the UK response now to the crisis in Japan. The Department for International Development has confirmed that a UK international search and rescue team will fly out to Japan this afternoon in a few hours. The team will comprise of 59 personnel drawn from fire services from all around the country, including Lancashire, West Sussex and Greater Manchester. It'll involve 4 doctors and 11 tonnes of specialised equipment. And
search dogs will also be going on that trip.
Let's speak to Jeremy Brown. He's the British Minister of State for South East Asia and the Far East. Mr Brown, welcome to BBC News. Can you tell me a little bit more about the British response to this crisis?
Yes, I can. Well, there's a whole number of different facets to the response. First of all, I spoke to our ambassador in Tokyo this morning. We had a 10 o'clock meeting, emergency COBRA meeting that I chaired this morning as well. And there are a number of announcements coming out of that. In terms of our consular operation, British nationals in Japan, people should ring the emergency number if they're concerned, 020 7008 0000. We have more than enough capacity to deal with all of those calls that are coming into to that hotline. And obviously we're coordinating that with our people in Tokyo and Osaka over in Japan. They are being reinforced by other British embassy staff from across Asia who are arriving pretty much as I speak, and we'll be sending further reinforcements from London. So the situation, of course, is chaotic. It's terrible what is happening in Japan, and people will have seen that in their TV pictures on your channel. But we are trying to get to the bottom of that. We are working very closely with the Japanese authorities to be of the best assistance possible to British nationals in Japan. Separate strand from that is that we are very keen to assist the Japanese more generally as they try to get to grips with the aftermath. And it may not even be over yet in terms of extra tsunamis that have devastated the northeast part of Japan. So this afternoon, a DFID team, a dedicated search and rescue team, 63 people plus 2 dogs, will be leaving from Britain, flying to Japan. We made that offer straight away to the Japanese. It was on the table straight away. They spent a bit of time thinking about how they wanted to deploy them, understandably. They've now said yes, accepted our offer, and so British people, along with those from other countries, will be there helping in Japan. And of course the Japanese themselves have great expertise in this area, but anyone watching the TV can see the scale of the task is massive. Exactly. But we are playing our part.
And what I was going to say to you is, whenever there is a disaster such as this, a whole host of government agencies, charities, all pile in What about the coordination? Is that being totally handled just by the Japanese government?
Well, there is a coordination, it's a slightly separate issue, there's a coordination here in Britain, which I hope reassures people that the meeting that I chaired this morning, for example, included people with expertise in terms of nuclear issues, in terms of search and rescue issues, the police, the Home Office, Foreign Office. So we are making sure we have a very coordinated British government response. Separate to that, of course, the Japanese are leading. It's a big, sophisticated country, Japan. It's the third biggest economy in the world. So it's not like some parts of the world where the basic organisational infrastructure doesn't exist. But anyone who's been watching the pictures as they've unfolded on the BBC News channel will see the full scale of what has happened is absolutely devastating. So the Japanese are taking the lead, quite rightly, but we are great friends of Japan. We want to help them, and we have made those offers to help them, and the Japanese have accepted those offers, and that's why the DFID team will be playing its part in trying to get to grips with what is, as I say, a truly terrible situation.
And what is the priority for them? What will they be taking with them? What will they be doing as soon as they land on the ground?
Well, that will obviously sit within the context of what the Japanese are organising, but for the avoidance of doubt, it is not a nuclear response team. People will have been watching those alarming pictures on their television screens. This is, if you like, a routine. I don't want to make it sound sort of, every day, but it's a search and rescue team, because there are, must inevitably be, anyone watching the TV pictures can see this, a huge number of people who need help, who need to be got out of buildings, who need to be assisted in the specialist way that this team is able to provide. So we will be playing a significant role, but as part of an overall coordinated Japanese effort to try and get to grips with getting people out, injured people, people who've been trapped. It's that sort of work in buildings that have been damaged right across northeast Japan, and the British team will be playing a part in that exercise.
Jeremy Brown, live from one of our central London studios. Thank you very much indeed. Well, the British government has announced it's sending teams to help in the aftermath of the Japanese quake and tsunami. They'll take specialist equipment, search dogs, firefighters and doctors specially trained to deal with collapsed buildings and flooding. Joining us on the line now from Hampshire in the UK is Peter Crook, the coordinator of UK International Search and Rescue. Peter, can you just tell us exactly what this team will be doing?
Yeah, hi. The team is a specialist search and rescue team that responds to all major disasters on behalf of the UK government. So it's mainly firefighters with a few doctors to give us medical support, and on the ground they'll be doing that functional role, which is that search and rescue element of trying to make sure there's nobody still trapped in any debris anywhere that can be saved. So that is the role, the primary role of the team. And
this is a team that's gone out to disaster areas many times in the past, yeah?
Yeah, I personally have only just come back from New Zealand with a team, similar team that went out to the earthquake in New Zealand. The group that are going out there now are the same group we sent out to Haiti last year. So a very experienced bunch of people. This no disaster is the same. This one is huge, obviously. So I'm sure it'll have some serious challenges, but the team is well equipped and prepared for that.
We're seeing some horrific pictures on the screens, and you kind of think, my goodness, where do you start? Is this coordinated centrally by the Japanese government? When you get to somewhere like this, do you exactly know where to go and who to help first?
Well, we're obviously already plugging into the structures over there to make sure that when we get there, they can use us in the best possible way, and they will have emergency management structures, and we're already talking to them. There will be also other international players on the ground who are doing a similar role to us. We know we have American colleagues, Australian colleagues, again, the people we worked with in New Zealand a few weeks ago in some cases, and Japanese colleagues as well, who, again, we worked with in New Zealand. So it's actually a fairly well-known group of people that we know how to work together and coordinate, and we have systems for that. So it's a fairly well-rehearsed setup we work within. We take the lead from the Japanese emergency agencies as to where they think we are best placed to help them. And as you say, it's a huge event, and where do you start? But that's part of what we try and do. Obviously, we try and pick out the most important things and work from there.
Sorry to interrupt, very briefly, Peter, what is generally the priority? Getting fresh water, getting shelter, what? Quickly, please.
Well, for us, it's search and rescue the people who may still be alive trapped in buildings that are damaged. The water obviously becomes very quickly a priority after that. But ours is that first few days of rescuing people who are trapped.
OK, Peter Crook, we wish you and your team all the very best. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.